All right. Welcome back with another Mary Truth Talks. I am your host, Marianne, and this is the MTT Show. Before we begin, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and X. That's MARY_truths with an S, MARY_truths with an S. And if you believe in our wellness community, if you believe in wellness, if you believe that your mind and your body are two things that are meant to be together, not separated, they're not supposed to be treated separated, they're supposed to be treated as one vehicle, support MB Elevate on Instagram. And if you want to invest in your health and in this podcast, join our Patreon account. Link down below. Let's begin, ladies and gentlemen. A lot has happened in the time that I have not gone live. Because it was Valentine's Day that time, and then second time, long story short, I couldn't walk because I couldn't keep my head up straight. So that's another story for another day. However, so let's talk about the fact that the Trump administration, our military, just took out Iran's supreme leader. Insane stuff. We're living in wild times, but hey, wild times creates crazy content. So I guess there's a positive to everything. That's just me saying this. I don't know. Maybe other people can say something different. But let's listen to the President of the United States talk about this before it actually happened. This was like yesterday when was this? That he dropped that video?
It says 15 hours ago.
Okay, so less than 24 hours ago. Got it. Hasn't been a full day yet. Scott doesn't sleep.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So he says that. Okay. And then just about 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago, we have word from an Israeli official that they have ended the life of the supreme leader of Iran. Before that happened, though, am I on full screen? Okay. Before that happened, I do want to highlight these little details that I think are important. When he said this, and then they attacked Iran, and nothing was definitive yet that this person has been eliminated, the Western European nations, such as the UK, for example, was rejecting what Trump was doing in Iran at the beginning. Okay, I want to make that clear. But after Iran retaliated by attacking the Arab countries nearby that have already made it clear to Iran last year that they are willing to cooperate and they are willing to partner up and make deals with the United States, when, Trump went to Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, all that jazz was also to show Iran, hey, we're willing to work with the West. We're not buying what you're selling. You're too extreme. We're trying to make money and you're messing it up for the rest of us, okay? So by Iran attacking them, they're saying, okay, now you messed up because now we're going to collaborate with them to go after you and finish you indefinitely, okay? After they did that, then the UK Prime Minister then changed his view and he's like, oh, we're not involved whatsoever with the attack on Iran, but we do not agree with Iran's behavior at all, Weird how the shift changes all of a sudden when they notice that all other Arabian countries were like, wait, no, we don't agree with this. We're not with Iran. We're with the US, right? Okay. And then Iran, again, this is all before they eliminate the guy. Then Iran cries to the United Nations and says, please help us. Look at what the U.S. government is doing in the military. They're hurting our sovereignty. Okay? And then the UN now is having this BS meeting, pretending like they have some type of power around the globe when they don't. It's all facade. The United Nations was created to pretty much put shackles on the U.S. That's why it was created. But the reality is, the United Nations doesn't really exist. It's just a illusion for people that are pro-globalism and one world government and no borders, for those people to be like, well, what America's doing around the world is unconstitutional, it's anti-democratic, it's whatever they want to call it. It's evil, whatever they want to call it. Instead of calling it what it is. America's the number one superpower in the world. What is the number one superpower supposed to do? Put everybody else in check. That's what it's supposed to do. People say, oh, we don't want a police state. We don't want a country that's policing the world. It's not about policing. It's about, we are the number one superpower. We're not going to just allow you to kill thousands of people in your country. It's not going to happen. If America truly believes in humanitarianism, in philanthropy, in helping thy neighbor, if America truly believes in all these things that we have believed in for many, many years now, since the origins of America, then it makes perfect sense for the military that we fund very much to be used as a deterrence for countries to think they can't just be playing murder with their own people. And that's for Iran. That's for the Cuban regime. They've been starving our people for decades now. That's Venezuela and what they were doing, Mexico and what they're doing. So this, to me, is a symbol of America saying, as long as we have power and we are the number one hegemony, we're not going to allow countries to do what Iran did just in a short amount of time, in like 2 months' time. How many people they killed because those people were against the regime. Or we're not going to allow the cartels to drain the population with drugs. We're not going to allow that. We're not going to allow Cuba to starve their people and people continue to leave Cuba in droves because the Cuban government is so incompetent that they don't even know basic economics as far as why it's important to have private property in Cuba or any country for that matter. These are just examples, but my point is, those who say that what we're doing is wrong, you're not looking at the bigger picture here, fam. The bigger picture is we cannot allow countries to do what Iran, Venezuela, Mexico, Cuba, etc. are doing. The reason why Russia attacked Ukraine was because of weak leadership. If we have strong leadership, what Russia did with Ukraine would have never happened. What Hamas did with Israel would have never happened if we would have had actual leadership in this country. That's why it's so important to vote for the right person to negotiate on your behalf, on my behalf. Because if you don't, and you vote out of emotion, and you end up voting for a weak leader, wars sprout all around the world. So that might be a stretch to some people. I'm not trying to force my opinion onto you. That's what I think. You could tell me what you think in the comments. But with that said, let's look into how they annihilated this guy, or if there's any details about this. I saw a little bit of it, but I didn't see the whole thing.
Yeah, Sandra, we just got this in literally 2 minutes ago, but Fox News can confirm that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead following Israeli strikes against his compound and location earlier today. A senior Israeli official confirming this news. Earlier tonight, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu describing the strikes not only against the supreme leader, but against much of the Iranian leadership. We know the breakdown in strikes focused on leadership for the Israelis and military targets initially for the Americans, and has since expanded as this campaign is expected to continue in the days and possibly even weeks ahead. As we're looking at the current situation across the region, we're also gathering new information on what the Israelis have been doing against Iran. We are told from a military official that the largest Israeli Air Force sortie against any country in the world was conducted this morning with 200 Israeli fighter jets targeting 500 different locations, dropping hundreds of munitions on a variety of different targets inside of Iran. The Israelis, while they were going after leadership, were also looking to neutralize the incoming ballistic missile fire that has targeted their country throughout the day. Sirens sounded across Israel throughout the afternoon, sending millions of people into bomb shelters. But again, the takeaway here, the Israelis have killed Iran's supreme leader. That is being confirmed to Fox News by a senior Israeli official. John, Sandra?
Okay, so Trey, you're obviously breaking that news for us just now. We'll be looking for reaction, obviously, on the ground in Iran and all over the Middle East region.
Absolutely. This is a major blow to the Iranian regime. Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, was not a figurehead. He was the man in charge of decisions as it relates to Iran's nuclear program, their expanding ballistic missile program, the hardline positions that made it impossible for the Americans to reach a diplomatic solution with the Iranians. And that led to a variety of conversations behind the scenes. And I can also report, having just gotten off of a background call with a U.S. official, that there were attempts made by the Trump administration, really olive branches given to the Iranians at the negotiating table, asking them to find a solution on the nuclear issue. These other issues, their ballistic missile program, their support of regional proxies, and even the crackdown on protesters, the Trump administration initially was willing to ignore those issues in order to get an agreement together on the nuclear program. And they simply were not willing to come to the table with reasonable demands. And despite the efforts by top negotiators that were sent to Oman and to Switzerland, whether it be Special Envoy Steve Witkoff or President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, who we know have been working across the region around the clock over the past year, not just on this issue, but also to get a ceasefire in Gaza and implement the new Board of Peace to create stability in the region. The understanding was that the Iranian regime and the supreme leader himself, these were the last hurdles for the region between stability and instability. And this decision was made overnight by President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to launch these extensive strikes across Iran in order to neutralize that threat. President Trump overnight, when he made those remarks, said there could be American casualties. This is going to be a difficult fight because no war is easy, despite the fact that by tomorrow the Israelis believe they will have air superiority over the skies of Iran. But we have seen the Iranian response today, not just here in Israel, with the ballistic missile fire targeting major population centers, including Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Haifa, but also Gulf countries, Bahrain, the UAE, and Qatar. A regional diplomat telling Fox News this evening that 8 people were injured in Qatar during one of the attacks. One of them is in critical condition. And so there are serious consequences to this counterattack by Iran. But again, tonight, the news that is breaking across the region, Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, according to a senior Israeli official, has been killed.
All right.
So, Trey, if that report...
Okay. So it is official. Multiple people are saying that he has been eliminated. At that point, it wasn't officially verified, but now it is. And multiple people are saying the same thing. He's not with us anymore. He's not in this reality anymore. So a lot of people, even friends of mine, are saying that this is not acceptable. You know, he ran on no new wars. And you're right, he did run on no new wars. You're right. He did say he was a peaceful president. But I don't know about you, but those of us who comprehend how to actually achieve peace, then you would know, in order to have peace, you have to go through war. That's how this works. You can't just have peace without conflict. There needs to be conflict in order for peace to manifest itself. So if you didn't know that, well, now you do. Now, a lot of people are saying on the right and the left, as far as politics are concerned, I'm talking about people, okay? People have their own opinions. I'm talking about politicians are saying on the right and the left, like the Ro Khannas of the world or the Massis of the world, they're saying that this is unconstitutional, this is illegal, and that they didn't allow Congress to declare war. And this is the excuse they've been using over and over again when he did what he did with the nuclear strikes last year, when he removed Maduro from his dictatorship in Venezuela. They continue to use the same, to me, it's not even a good tactic to use because Obama didn't ask Congress approval to bomb like eight Islamic countries, okay? Don't quote me on it. Was it 5 to 8? I'm not sure. I think it was 8, but whatever. It was definitely in the double digits of countries he bombed, and he did not get congressional approval to do that. Not to mention that the Gang of 8 is what they call them, the Gang of 8, which are 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, were briefed on this issue before it occurred. So just because they didn't put it to a vote did not mean that the House was not conscious of this strike before it happened, okay? So I want to make that very clear. There are people, a very small committee of people that I believe are in the Homeland Committee. I believe Fetterman is in that same committee, and he's one of those Democrats who agrees with this strike. So there are Democrats and Republicans who were briefed beforehand, and they agree with this approach to go after Iran because of the fact that they did not want to come to the negotiating table when they had many options and many chances to do so. Instead, they said, no, we're not going to listen to you, because they believe in death to America. So obviously, if you are chanting that, then you're not going to want to negotiate with America. That's common sense. But of course, you give them the opportunity, they tell you no, and then obviously all you can do is use of force, because diplomacy didn't work. So that's the second option. And the third option would be to do nothing, which would be a very weak approach. So many of you who are on the left or on the right, who are on this isolationist mentality, you have a very weak approach when it comes to geopolitics, and weak approaches when it comes to the global scale of things causes war and causes more deaths than what's necessary. Unfortunately, when it comes to war, there are going to be casualties. It is what it is. That's unfortunate. But people who chose to join the military know that's a possibility. Okay? When you sign yourself off to the military, you know you could possibly die for your country. That's an understanding you make as somebody who joined the armed forces. So it doesn't make sense to me that people are like, well, we shouldn't be fighting in wars. Why do we have a military then, guy? What's the point of having a military? We obviously have a military because it's a necessity. Because we can't expect the world to be kind and nice to each other. Everybody is trying to reach the top, okay? And right now, America's on top, and to stay on top, we need to be the big dogs. This is one of the ways we stay on the top. If not, it's gonna be China. And I don't know about you, but I'm not comfortable having China as the number one superpower. If you are, well, maybe you should question your morality, your values. Are you a America first, or are you a communist? I'm just saying. Now, let's shift, all right? Let me know what you think in the comments, but let's shift, all right? We're shifting to dating culture. I did a poll yesterday. Guys, if you're not following, follow me, Mary_Truths on Instagram, TikTok, and X. And subscribe. If you have not subscribed, subscribe. Help us make the show more relevant to other people. I'm trying to give you a different perspective, okay? It's not just always about right or left. There has to be a middle ground in between. I don't like this. No, we should never go to war, or we should always be in war. Sometimes it depends, okay? Sometimes things are gray. Not everything is black and white except gender, but we'll get into that. So let's talk about dating, okay? Dating. All right, so okay, that's a lot to unpack with dating. Okay, I think the dating world has changed for many reasons. Okay, I'm 30 years old. I've been in a relationship with my partner for 8 years now. We are engaged. And just about maybe 30 years ago, we would have probably already had a family at the age of 30 years old. Because 30 to 40 years ago, the mindset of the young people was different. They were focusing on building a family. They were focusing on continuing civilization the way it's always been since all of this started, whenever this was. People can say thousands and thousands of years ago, it doesn't really matter. Point is, we know that civilization's been around because men and women make babies, right? Okay. So right now we're having a birth rate problem. Right now, men aren't having sex. Right now, women have become so liberal that they're focusing on their careers and their future instead of focusing on building a family. Right now, the economy is so difficult that it is hard for you to buy a house to want to build a family. So the incentives to build a family aren't really there. And then on top of that, we have things like OnlyFans, we have Instagram, we have porn, we have services, digital services that has monetized intimacy to a level of you don't have to actually pursue anybody anymore. You can get your fix on the internet. And
Or on a dating app.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. On the internet. And to me, that's the reason why we have such a crisis when it comes to dating. The culture in dating has changed. You know, people now, in order to date, they find each other on apps. You know, like Laz and I found each other in person, and then we found each other again because I never deleted his phone number, and I messaged him one day, and then we rekindled. But I never understood the concept of finding somebody on the internet. I thought that was weird. I know it works for some people, but then at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because it creates loveless intimacy. You know, so yeah, it can help people find love, sure. But I think the majority of people who use dating apps is just to get, you know, a quick nut. That's
At the end of the day, it's just a tool, right? And then it's all on how people use it. And it's currently being used to get your nut.
because it's more convenient to do it like that.
But I don't think it's because of the apps. I think it's just the mentality of people, you know, how they perceive sex, intimacy. And I think it's been like skewed over time.
Yeah, I mean, so OnlyFans, I'm bringing up OnlyFans because it's the most mainstream app right now that men are using, right? So OnlyFans started in 2016, but men were already having a sexless life way before that, right? So I can't say it's because of OnlyFans why men are in decline and they're not as sexually active as they were before. And that's, again, why there's a marriage problem, a birth rate problem.
Well,
right?
there's something I could definitely blame for that.
But
I think it's porn.
yeah, but before porn, it was already happening still, because before porn there was magazines that were
Yeah,
showing
but it's
women.
not the same because
Yeah, of course. But it already
harder
started
to-
that quick fix, you know, that convenience of I don't need
Well, I mean, that
to
is-
pursue a woman.
that
I can
is
just
porn.
look at some
magazine is porn. It's just
Yeah, exactly.
it wasn't as prevalent because it wasn't as easy to access as the internet is, you know.
Right. Exactly.
And
But
it doesn't desensitize you as much as porn
as
can.
porn does, right?
Yeah.
Because it's digital. It's an
At
actual
least
like
digital porn.
exactly. So that's a factor. That's not the only factor, but I believe that's a really big factor
For sure.
because it changes your mindset on sex in general, on intimacy in general, and it kind of changes the mind of a man, and you no longer want to have that urge and desire to go after a woman, you know, that doesn't, like, in a non, you know, inappropriate way, obviously, but, you know, to actually go and find the woman of your dreams type thing is what I'm saying, you know, like that, you know, like that's why Laz and I love to watch 80s movies and 90s movies, because you still see that figure of a man going after what he believes should be his, versus now men are just so like, well, you know, the woman should come to me. You know, like they don't think they should go and look for that woman. They think the woman just should come out of thin air.
Not only that, but the women themselves are actually just going to them.
Yes, that too. Yes. Right. Because of that, because men don't want to pursue anymore. So it's like, so now the behavior has changed, and now women are the one pursuing men versus men pursuing women.
Yeah. When it comes to social behavior, it's not just, it's a lot of things affecting that. But one of the main things is definitely the porn. And then another one is music.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Because that's part of culture.
that's part of culture. That's a
And
big one.
music is very influential. I mean, us growing up in high school, what kind of music was there, you know?
was
Gangsta rap.
It was all promiscuity.
Gangsta rap, hip hop.
Women should be strippers.
Promiscuous music, very promiscuous music.
It's okay to not be loyal. It's okay to cheat. You know, you're a bad bitch if you cheat.
Yeah, that was like
You know?
super like prevalent in those
Yeah.
times.
Right.
A lot of music. I mean, like now too, but I don't know. It's just like an explosion of that in our time because it was like new to us
Yeah.
when we were growing up.
Yeah.
You know,
But
like Nelly. You know that song from Nelly?
right, yeah.
When she got me in the sofa. Wasn't me.
But like at the end of the day, you can't remove all these things in order for people to change their mindset and their behavior. You have to be aware that these things exist and still not want to distract yourself with them. Instead, you have to, okay, what is it that I want in my life? Do I want a loveless life where I'm just, having sex with myself, technically, to a digital screen, to somebody that I don't even know, and I'm looking at her, like, and I'm getting off looking at her? Or do I actually want to find a woman that's worth my time, a woman that's going to improve me, and I'm going to improve her, and we're going to work together and build a family? Like, it's all about values. What do you value more? Do you value a quick nut, or do you value actual commitment and longevity with somebody? Do you want to die alone, or do you want to retire with somebody? So like, I think that even with OnlyFans and porn and all these things, like, they're always going to be there. It's a service, right? They have it. We have free will. You can choose to use that service, or you can be aware that that service doesn't serve you and you don't use it. You don't participate in it.
Well, here's the deal. So my perspective about that is that it's really all about, like you said, it's a service. It's there. You can choose to do it or not. So to me, they're all distractions from your purpose, which is to procreate, create a family, have
Right.
the nuclear family. That's the strongest family you can have, right?
Right.
A man and a woman with children, because children need both.
Right. That's how you build a civilization.
Yeah. Now, mind you, there's certain families that can't do that. There's certain circumstances that don't allow for it, whatever. But in generality, that's the best way to raise a kid. To have
Right.
a family. To
Now,
have purpose.
Now, people can say, well, it's hard to build a family when there's no incentive to build a family as far as economy is concerned. And I agree with that to an extent, but you can't always blame the environment around you for your thought process. Like, for example, I grew up with my dad always being on the road. Okay, because he owns a truck driving business, so he was always on the road, and I was pretty much raised by my mom. But they're a married couple to this day. However, I could have allowed my dad's absence to affect me to the point where I don't ever want to be in a committed relationship. I don't want to ever be with a man or have children or whatever, out of fear that the man I end up with will be like my dad. Or I cannot allow that to affect me and understand, okay, well, he's not around because he has to make money. He has to build for us, for our future. Of course, you learn that over time when you're an adult. But it's that behavior. You can choose to understand your environment in a negative way or in a positive way. It all depends on how you decide to shape your own environment. I don't believe your environment shapes you. I believe you shape your own, like yourself, regardless of your environment. Okay, I could have chosen to be a victim and said, well, because, my dad wasn't there, I am whatever. I don't know. I am hoeing around, or I don't want to be committed relationship, or I'm scared of marriage, or I'm scared of being a mom. I could have chosen that route. Instead, I didn't. Instead, I chose, okay, you know what? Even though my parents weren't there when I was younger, that's not going to affect me in thinking that I'm not going to be a mom or pursue a man that's going to be a great dad to my children, if that makes sense,
The thing about that is, yeah, you're right on a lot of that. It's just when it comes to realizing those things, it takes a lot of introspective. Like,
yes, it does.
Like you have to look inside yourself and really ask yourself, like, who am I? Really. Because
Yes.
when you're growing up, not having your dad or mom around does affect you, and it does affect your choices. Because again, that's the core of your personality. As you grow up, you get certain things from your dad, you get certain things from your mom,
Right.
and that's how you see them as the reflection to the world, right? There's this immense trust with your parents, and you act like them because you think that's how you're supposed to act in the world. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's later on when you break out of that you realize all the negative and toxic patterns, like, hey, I'm not this person, or hey, I don't really do this. I'm only doing this because this is what I saw my whole life.
Yes. Exactly.
But
at the end of the day, it's that desire to want to better yourself regardless of the environment around you is what's going to actually break you out of this cycle of sexless relationships, or loveless relationships, better said, or lack of intimacy, or fear of marriage, or fear of being a bad parent, or whatever the case might be. Like, because what you genuinely want to do is better yourself regardless of the odds, And I think the biggest, to me, the best story, and I'm sure a lot of Americans can agree, anybody around the world really can agree, is an underdog story. That you came from a very tough environment, and regardless of that environment, you toughened it out and you became the best version of yourself. Like, who doesn't want a story like that? So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, even though we have porn, we have OnlyFans, we have all this crap that's distracting us, like, what do you want your future to look like? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to build a life for yourself? If you want that, then there are certain behaviors that you need to realize you have and change them. Of course, it's not going to be overnight. Nothing is built overnight.
everything takes work.
Everything takes work, but it's the willingness to actually try. And that's what behavior is willingness to try. Like, what are my patterns? Okay, what do I need to change in order to change the way I am, the way I think, because people think, dating culture it's really just about like, women, should women pay half the meal? Like, I think that's just so like surface level. Like, who cares, dude? What matters is, are you going out and you're looking for a woman worth your time? Because if you are, then it shouldn't matter whether she pays or she doesn't pay, or that doesn't matter.
Looks like a Memphis conservative agrees. He says he's been married. He's a prime example that he's been married for 8 years now.
That's awesome.
Congrats, man. That's beautiful.
Thanks, you owe me whiskey.
Oh, snap. Take a shot.
Yeah, man. Like I was bringing up marriage and children because a nuclear family, like you said, is the foundation of everything.
Of everything. The glue.
It's the glue. It's what creates civilizations, And right now we're literally having 0.1 child per woman. I believe that's what the stats is saying right now, which is no bueno. Because if we want to, I was just talking to our family yesterday about this. Like, we're talking about immigration, and kids nowadays are so aware of what's going on around the world. Like when we were in high school, we weren't that involved in world politics or anything like that because we didn't have technology to the advancement of kids now, high schoolers and people in early on in their college career. But like, our family members who are really young were saying, but if you kick out a bunch of immigrants, isn't that going to affect the country economically? Yes. If we're not having children, if we're not incentivizing marriage, of course it can, because you're relying on a good chunk of people. You're exporting them in order for them to work and pay taxes and so on. Because politics is a game. But if you actually have a message of, and I'm not talking about government, I'm talking about like people on the internet, people like me. Like, if people like me are talking about getting married, having children, the importance of continuing civilization, the importance of a nuclear family, we can actually have a decent conversation about why men are not having enough sex. Why are men not having low testosterone levels? Why are women so promiscuous? You know, like, who knows? Maybe it might just stop men from using OnlyFans. You know, I genuinely believe that everything starts with conversations. Like, if you have conversations about things, then that's when behaviors start happening, because you become aware of your own habits. So I know that, like, people are like, whoa, does dating culture really affect? Yeah, I believe it does. I think dating culture is everything. I think dating culture is the beginning of the continuation of our civilization, okay? Because a man and woman, they get to know each other, they like what they see, they start dating. In the dating process, they're talking, they're hanging out, they're getting to know each other, whether they want to like stay committed or not. Once they realize they really like each other, they go into commitment mode. They're in commitment mode for however long they're comfortable. The man proposes to the woman says yes, then they get married. Then from marriage, they have children. Bam, nuclear family. That's why dating is so important. The dating culture is so important, because it is literally the origin of the pursuit of civilization. The continuation of civilization starts in dating, which is crazy to think about it like that. But it is. At least I think so. You can let me know what you think. What do you think, Les?
No, yeah, I completely agree 100%. I mean, it's worked for, well, since the beginning of time for a reason.
Exactly.
It's made to be that way for a reason.
Yeah.
We just got to follow the blueprint.
And it's so simple, man.
I mean,
and
you know what?
You
know what? The blueprint might not be for everybody, and that's okay. But the majority follow it because in their heart of hearts, they know that's part of their purpose.
Right.
To procreate and create a strong family unit.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, it's not about like, I'm not on this boat of like removing porn and OnlyFans and all, and like these digital distractions.
No, you know,
I'm not there.
I'm with you. It's more about awareness. Like,
exactly. It's about what it can do to you.
Yeah, like
long term.
That, and just bringing awareness to people. Like, hey, like, look into yourself. Ask yourself the important questions.
Yeah.
You know, what am I doing here? What's my purpose?
Yeah.
Is this worth my time and energy?
Yeah. Especially when it comes, and especially we've been talking a lot about men. Let's shift to women, especially women in the dating culture. You know, dating culture has also kind of incentivized promiscuity, because when you're dating a man, you know, you end up having sex with this man, and this man not even be the man that you want to marry, and then, you know, it doesn't work out. You had sex with him, and then you move on to a new man, and the same pattern goes on and on and on. And then the next thing you know, you've already had sex with like 30 guys, you know? And I'm not saying that it makes you less of a person. Okay, I want to be very clear about that, because a lot of women that are on the right are on that boat, that if you have sex with multiple men, that makes you a less valuable person. The Andrew Tates of the world also have this belief. I disagree with that. I think that unfortunately we have to make mistakes, sometimes more than one, more than two, more than three, to realize our worth and our value. So I am not in that camp that if you are a promiscuous woman, or if you were a promiscuous woman, you have less worth than a virgin. I believe that everybody needs to go through something to learn and become a better person. And if you having to sleep with multiple men is how you get to enlightenment, so be it.
That's such a toxic mindset. Like, that virgin women are more valuable than women who have been with multiple men.
And undermining too.
Like, yeah, I'm with you on that 100%.
You know, like, not every woman wants to, you know, like, not experiment. All right, like, I know women who are very religious and will never give themselves to a man until they're married. And I respect that. But I'm not going to say that all women should be like that, because, you know, I just don't. I'm not on that boat. I think that's an extreme mentality to have. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it is extreme and unrealistic, because with the world that we're living in, women want to pursue just like men do. Women want to experiment. Women want to experience just like men do. You know, just like women were given the opportunity to be ambitious. That's why we were given the opportunity to vote, to work among men, right? So because we were given this opportunity, then a lot of other things are going to come after. And that means I want to have, that idea that I want to be able to know what it feels like to have sex and know what kind of guy I want and what kind of guy I don't want. Not every woman is going to know by one dude. That's just how it is. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay. What is not okay is men and women saying that there's only one way to be a valuable woman, because that's just flawed. And it's very black and white. When it comes to becoming a valuable person, to me, maybe to you, you might think differently, but to me, I think you have to go through trials and tribulations. I think you need to make mistakes. I think you need to, fall and get back up again in order for you to know what your worth is personally. So I personally think that it's easier to know what you want when you're a woman if you've have had experience in your sexuality. Okay, that's my view on that. However, a woman who says I'm gonna wait until marriage to have sex, I respect that too. All right, I'm not doubting it, but I think it's more realistic for women to experiment just like men and figure out what man is worth their time, just like a man is doing the same thing. I felt like I was gonna say something else. But when it comes to dating and the dating culture, I think things are changing. I think that we are going into a realm where we are kind of highlighting the value in commitment and stability. We are talking about how young people want to buy a home, which is a good sign. That means young people are wanting to commit now compared to before. So I think we're on a trajectory where we are becoming more aware of this and how it's become a problem. I just hope that, we become more aware quicker. So, but it is what it is. There's a time and place for everything. But that's pretty much what I want to talk to you guys about, because I think dating is an extremely important topic for men and for women. I wanted you guys to know my perspective on it. A lot of people have this perspective of me that I'm like very conservative, which is very flawed perspective. But then again, I don't blame you. You don't know me, so I get it. You only know what I say. So, but hopefully you got a different perspective of me that can change your perspective of the very conservative viewpoint, okay? I think there are a lot of things that are black and white, but when it comes to dating, marriage, sex, there's gray areas in between. So that's my take on it. Give me yours in the comments. Subscribe, like, and share. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay true to yourself. Be a truth seeker, and I'll see you guys next time.